Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel, HOA Watch. I didn't say a word when the HOA president pointed at my sister's car and shouted about unauthorized visitors. I just let her finish, let her voice bounce off the concrete clubhouse walls, and then glanced at my sister. She didn't argue either. She reached into her jacket, pulled out her Department of Defense identification, and placed it on the polished oak table with a soft click. The lawyer sitting beside the board president leaned forward, saw the emblem stamped across the card, and went pale. Suddenly, the room wasn't loud anymore. It was silent. I never wanted it to get to that point. Honestly, I wasn't trying to start a war with the HOA. When I bought my little place on the edge of the subdivision, I was looking for peace. After 20 years of working double shifts and saving every spare dollar, I thought I'd finally found it. A house with enough space to breathe, a backyard big enough to plant tomatoes, and a front porch where I could sip coffee and watch the sunrise without traffic roaring past. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. The community looked decent on the outside. Neat lawns, kids on bicycles, families grilling on weekends. I wasn't looking for drama or control. Just a place where my sister could visit on her breaks, where I could fix up the garage in peace, and where maybe if I was lucky I'd spend the next decade without anyone bothering me. But peace doesn't last long where an HOA smells control. It started with a notice taped to my door. Apparently, my sister's car, a perfectly ordinary sedan, had been parked improperly when she came over one evening. Improperly, in their definition, meant she wasn't registered in their little visitor database, the one they claimed was mandatory for all overnight guests. I thought it was ridiculous, but I laughed it off. A warning notice? Fine. Maybe they were just overzealous. Then came the letters, thick envelopes stuffed with violations, every one of them about my sister. One accused her of unauthorized use of community amenities because she walked across the neighborhood park on her way to my place. Another claimed she had disturbed the peace because she arrived after 9 p.m. from a late flight. And then the real hammer. A formal order banning her from entering the subdivision at all. Not just her car. Her. I thought there had to be some mistake. Surely, nobody with common sense would tell a grown homeowner who they could or couldn't have in their own house. I emailed the board politely, pointing out that visitors aren't subject to HOA control. They ignored me. I requested a meeting. They laughed. One board member told me, flat out, that if I wanted guests, I should move somewhere else. That was the moment something shifted in me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam my fist on the table. I just stopped trying to be diplomatic. If they wanted to make this about authority, then I was going to find out exactly where theirs ended. So while they wrote more fines and threats, I sat at my desk late into the night reading every line of the HOA bylaws, county zoning codes, and state property statutes. And that's when I realized two critical things. First, nowhere, not once, did the governing documents give them power over guest entry. Their authority stopped at architectural reviews and landscaping compliance. Second, my sister wasn't just any visitor. She worked in federal security operations. Her presence on my property wasn't just legal. It was protected under federal law. So I documented everything, every violation letter, every email, every voicemail where they mocked me or threatened escalation. My sister helped too. She kept copies of the notices they mailed directly to her, which was not only harassment but a direct privacy violation. When neighbors started avoiding me, whispering about how I was troubled, I just nodded and smiled, because I already knew how this was going to end. The real turning point came when the HOA tried to bar her at the gate. She drove up one evening, the guardhouse stopped her, and they told her flat out that she was banned. She didn't argue. She just turned around and parked outside. Later, she looked me in the eye and said, "You realize what they just did, right? They obstructed federal clearance." That's when we planned the meeting, so here we were. The board president puffing herself up like a rooster, the lawyer smirking at me, the rest of the board nodding along. I didn't bother with the speech. I didn't even explain. My sister simply laid her ID on the table. Department of Defense, federal clearance, and then I slid the folder across. Copies of the HOA bylaw, county ordinances, and 3 different statutes highlighting guest rights. At the back of the folder was a letter drafted by a commanding officer. making it very clear that interference with a movement could trigger a federal review. The silence in that room was delicious. The lawyer coughed, leaned back, and suddenly discovered something fascinating about his shoes. The president's face went from red to pale in under a minute. Nobody said a word for the longest time. Eventually, one of the quieter board members muttered, "Maybe we should reconsider the ban." They didn't just reconsider. They rescinded every violation, every fine, every letter. They sent me a formal apology, though it was buried in legal jargon to save face. A month later, the president resigned, citing personal reasons. The lawyer stopped attending meetings altogether. By the end of the year, the HOA was half empty. Neighbors defecting and refusing to pay dues, because they finally realized the board had been bluffing all along. Life got quiet again after that. My sister still visits. Sometimes in uniform, sometimes just in jeans and a t-shirt. The same neighbors who once whispered now wave politely, though most of them can't meet my eyes for long. The board has new members, ones who seem to understand their job is trimming bushes and maintaining sidewalks, not policing families. And me? I still sit on that porch in the mornings, coffee steaming in my hands, watching the sunrise. The difference is, now, when I hear a car pulling up the street, I don't feel tension in my chest, wondering if the HOA will strike again. I know they won't, because the last time they tried, my sister dropped her ID on the table, and their entire illusion of power crumbled in an instant. Now they wabe, or they turn away. Either way, it's quiet again.